Hello everyone, welcome back to the Bridge Tutorial Center, and today we are going to discuss one of the most important topic in biology, and it is very confusing to some of our students. So this topic is classification. But which aspect of classification are we talking about? The one we are going to be doing today is Subphylum Vertebrata. Subphylum Vertebrata. But before we proceed on to that, let's take a look at some key things about classification. We all know that classification is the arrangement of living organisms based on similar characteristics and differences. So we just arrange all the living organisms. We all know that they are being arranged in an hierarchical order called the Kipkofats. Don't forget the Kipkofats. Before, many people usually talks about Kipkofats. Kipkofats before. So, but now it has been changed from Kipkofats to the Kipkofats. You can see. So Ki is for what? It's for kingdom. P is for phylum. C is for class, order, family, genus, species. But an additional one has been put in place, and that one is domain. So we have the Kipkofats. Don't forget about that one. So we have the D for what? We have domain. So domain is the largest and the broadest one. So from domain you move on to what? To kingdom. From kingdom you move on to what? To phylum. From phylum you have your what? You have your class. From class you have order. From order you have your family. From family you have your genus, and after genus finally we have species. Please don't forget about that one. This is the domain, which is the largest and the most inclusive one. That is, everything here can be found inside it. So for after domain we have the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So if they ask you which one is the largest, that is the domain. If you don't see domain among your option, you can choose kingdom. If there is no kingdom, choose phylum, no phylum, class, and so on like that. The smallest one is also species, which contains the least number of organisms. And those organisms inside this species, they are closely related organisms that can interbreed with one another. So for an organism to interbreed naturally, they must be of the same species. So species contain the least number, while the domain contain the largest number. Don't forget about those two key points. We are still going to discuss about hierarchical arrangement of hierarchical classification later. So, but for today, what we are going to be talking about is this Subphylum Vertebrata. Now, moving on, our domain is subdivided into kingdom. We have three major domains: the Archaea, the Eubacterium, and finally we have the Eukarya. Okay, but we are not discussing that. What we are going to be talking about is the kingdom. You all know that we have five major kingdoms. You have the first one, the kingdom Monerum. You have the kingdom Protista. You have the kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, and finally kingdom Animalia. Under your kingdom Animalia, it is being subdivided into two phylum. We have phylum, we have subphylum, and many other things between them, but we are not going there. Just take note of two major subphylum. You have the Invertebrate and Invertebrata and Vertebrata. Invertebrata is the phylum without the backbone. They contain organisms without backbone. While the vertebrate, they are those that contain organisms with backbone, and that is where we are going today. So let's start. Okay, so what are vertebrates? Vertebrates are bilaterally symmetrical animals. So that's the first thing. The first thing is that note that they are under kingdom Animalia. The next thing is that they are bilaterally symmetrical. What is the meaning of bilaterally symmetrical? Bilaterally based on symmetry, body symmetry. Body symmetry is being classified. Based on body plan, symmetry is being classified into three. We have asymmetry, we have bilateral symmetry, and we have the radial symmetry. The asymmetry are those organisms that they cannot be cut along any plane to give you two equal sides. For example, let's assume you have something like this. You have something like this. let's assume there is no way you can what to, let's assume it cannot be cut along any what to, any plane to give you two equal sides. That's asymmetry. And it usually occur in some poriferas, all those sponges. After the poriferas, after the asymmetrical organism, we have another one called bilateral symmetry. When you are talking about bilateral symmetry, that means they can only be cut along one plane to give you two equal sides. Take a look at me, for example. You can see you can only cut along this plane to give you two equal sides, the right and the left. The same thing, let's assume you have an organism that is like this. Okay, let's say you have an organism that is like this. Okay, let's say you have something like an organism that is like this. Okay, you have something like this, and you have something like this. Okay, you can see that you can only cut this thing in one plane to give you two equal sides, which is like this. If you cut it like this, you are going to get equal opposite sides. So if you have sorry about my diagram. So you can see this is the right hand side, this is the left hand side. So they will be equal. So that's the only plane you can cut it for you to get two equal sides. If you cut it here, the one at the upper one will not be the same thing as the lower one. So any organism that can be cut along only one plane to give two equal sides are being referred to have had bilateral symmetry. We have another form of symmetry which is being referred to as radial symmetry. Those ones, they can be cut along any plane to give you two equal sides. Okay, let's assume you have something like you have the echinoderm, the echinodermata, which include all those sea urchin, all those sea cucumber, all those starfish and the likes. They have they have radial symmetry, specifically the adult form. So we have another one that also have the radial symmetry. We have those are the coelenterate, the hydra, the jellyfish and the likes. So when you are talking about radial symmetry, take a look at this, for example. Let's say this starfish. Okay. So if you have something like this, you can see you can cut this thing along this axis. If you cut it along this axis, okay, you cut it like this. This side equals to what to this side. That's what to but you can see they give you two equal opposite sides. Another place you can still cut it from from here. Okay, let's see. There still be some other places where you can cut it. Let me redraw it. Okay, let's say you have something like this. I will just use like this. Okay, if you cut it, this place equals to this place. So if you cut it here, this place equals to this place. You can still cut it here. You can see this place equals to this place. You can cut it here. This place equals to this place. So that's radial symmetry. They can be cut along many sides to give you two equal opposite sides. So now back to vertebrates. We said they are bilaterally symmetrical animals. That is, you can only cut it along one plane to give you two equal opposite sides. And they possess something called vertebral column. This is very important. When you are talking about vertebrates, the most specific thing about them is that they have vertebral column, which is your spinal column. That is that bone that houses the spinal cord. The bone that houses the spinal cord is called the spinal column or the vertebral column, and it is only present in in vertebrates. All other organisms, they don't want they don't have that vertebral column. Another special thing about vertebrates is that apart from having vertebral column or backbone, they also have cranium, which is also being referred to as the brain box. That's the bone that protects the brain. Sometimes you can call it is a part of skull. The skull, you have the bone of the head is called the skull, but the one that specifically cover the brain is called the cranium, or if you like, the brain box, at least for O level. Okay, now so we've talked about the vertebral column. Don't forget that the vertebral column, which is your backbone, are 33 in number in human being. So we have starting from the back, you have the cervical vertebra, you have your thoracic at the chest region, you have the lumbar, you have the sacral, and you have the cauda. So the formula is 712554. So let's take a look. You have the cervical. Let's start from the first one, which is the cervical, the neck region. You have the followed by the what? The thoracic. You have the thoracic, which is the thoracic. You have the lumbar. After the lumbar, you have the sacrum, and finally, after the sacrum, you have the cauda, the cauda. Those are the what? Those are the 5 groups of vertebrae in human body. Okay, and those 5 groups, in total, they contain 33 bones. The cervical, they are 7 in number. The thoracic, they are 12 in number. Lumbar is 5. Sacra is 5. Cauda is what? Is 4. Sorry. Now we have form. So don't forget the formula. 7, 12, 5, 5, 4. 7, 12, 5, 5, 4. So sometimes some people may call it, if you add everything, you are going to get 31 to 33. But some people may call it 26 instead of 33. And how do they arrive at that? So the cervical, we have 7, the thoracic 12, lumbar 5. Sacra can fuse together to form something called sacrum. It will now be 1 like that. And cauda can fuse together to form something called coccyx. So this is a very common question. The cauda fuse together to form something called what? Coccyx. So you have something like this, and it will now be 1. So if you add everything now, 7 plus 12, that's 19, 24, 25, 26. So that's another way to count the number of the vertebral column. So don't forget the function of your vertebral column is to protect the spinal cord. Now, since we've known the word the meaning of vertebrates as those organisms that possess vertebral column and cranium, these vertebrates can be divided. You know, when you divide domain, you have kingdom. When you divide kingdom, you have what? Phylum. When you now divide phylum, what are you going to get? Class. So we can divide these vertebrates into 5 major classes. And those 5 major classes are param. Please don't forget param. Very, very important. I want us to memorize it like this. Param. Starting from the first one, which is the what? Which is the most primitive. And the second one is primitive, that is, it is ancient. You know. So from the most primitive to what? To the modern one. To the modern one now. So the most primitive you can see from the Pisces, the amphibian, the reptilia, the Aves, and the what? And the mammalia. So let us memorize the acronyms. Param. So you have to know how it one follow the other. So we can assume this one, amphibia evolved from this one, reptilia evolved from this one evolved from this one, and so on. So let us take note of that. Param, classes under Phylum Vertebrata. Classes under Phylum Vertebrata. Okay, so it is very important for us to take note of the main characteristics of these 5 classes. They are very, very important. Okay, so we have 5 major classes starting from P, which is Pisces. A is for what? Amphibian. And R is for reptilia, A is for Aves, and M finally is for mammalian. So don't forget, don't forget that when you are talking about this param, arrangement matters. So you must be stating it, you must memorize it as param, not as any other thing, for you to be able to arrange or for you to be able to easily characterize each of those classes. Now, okay, we are going to start with examples of each of those classes. Let's start from the first one, which is the Pisces. What are the examples of Pisces? Pisces is almost the same thing as fish. We all know fish, though we have one fish that doesn't have vertebral column, which is the hagfish. Hagfish, you know. The fish are subdivided into agnata, you know, the jawless fish. You have the chondrotids, which are the what? Which are the cartilaginous fish, and finally the bony fish or osteochids. Okay, so what are the examples of Pisces? We have the first one to be what? Tilapia. We all know tilapia. We all know many examples of fish. We have tilapia, shark, ray, skate, salmon, mackerel, etc. We have the next one, which is amphibian. Amphibian, we have the frog, toad, salamander, and newt. You have to note these very well. They normally, most of the question, most of the example being asked are usually among these 4. You have the next one, which is reptilia. Reptilia includes something like snake, tortoise, lizard, crocodile, turtle, etc. We have the next one, which is the Aves, or you can say the bear. You all know that the special characteristics of that one is the presence of feather. They are also being referred to as the glorified reptile. That is a reptile that can fly. Okay? Now, moving on, we have the Mammalia. The word Mammalia, don't forget, that's the most important one. The word Mammalia is being derived from mammary gland. When you are talking about mammary gland, that is a gland that helps in secretion or production of milk. So any animal that has mammary gland is going to be a mammal. Another special characteristics of this mammal is presence of ear. You know, when you are talking about ear, when you see ear on the body of an animal, that animal is likely to be a mammal. There was this question from JAMB. They said a fisherman went to the river to fish, to catch fish, and at the end of the day, he caught an animal with ear on its body. This animal is likely to be dash. The options are fish. You have your Amphibia, you have the Reptilia, you have the Mammalia. There are many people may think because they mentioned the word fisherman, so they are going to be catching fish, but that's wrong. Because they mentioned that there is ear on the body of that animal, the answer is going to be what? So, mammal. Okay, now moving on. Okay, we've talked about at least two major things that you can use to recognize a mammal. We said the first one is the word mammary gland, while the second one is the ear. So you take a look at the examples. You have your man, goat, sheep, whale, bat, lion, monkey, tiger, leopard, cheetah, any one of those animals that you can see here on its body. Some special one that you have to take note of is bats. Don't forget bats, whale. So these are one of the few tricks that examiner normally use, because people think whale is a fish. Don't forget, whale is not a fish. Whale is a mammal. It has mammary gland. It has mammary gland, it has lung for respiration, and many other characteristics of mammal. And the same thing with bats. You know, bat is also a mammal. We call it a flying mammal. So take note, we have mammal that can fly, we have mammal that can swim inside the water. We even have some mammal that can lay egg. Those are the monotremes. We are still going to get there later. Now, back to our business, the characteristics. These are the 7 most commonly asked characteristics. So you have to understand and memorize each and every one of them. Now, let's start from the first one, habitat. We all know what we mean by the word habitat. Habitat is a place where an organism lives naturally. So the habitats can be subdivided into 3. We have the 3 major habitats. We have the aquatic habitat, which is live in water. We have the terrestrial habitat, which is live on land. And we have the third one, which is arboreal habitat, which is live on, all those things that can fly from trees, all those kind of stuff. Those are the arboreal habitats. Okay, let's start from the first one, which is Pisces. What the habitat of this organism? Okay, the habitat is what? We have in water, the aquatic organism, water. So what about amphibian? The word amphibian means double life, or let me say dual life. That is, they can live in 2 different habitats. They can live on land and they can live in water. So they have dual life. Don't forget about that. Amphibian. Don't forget our typical example. Okay, they can live both water and on land. On land. We have the third one. So like you can see that all these vertebrates, the first vertebrate starts from water, which is the Pisces. Don't forget. Then after Pisces, we have the Amphibia. The Amphibia, they started living in the water and move to land. But they still go back to water for reproduction. So they live on both land and in water. We have the Reptilia, which is on land. We have the Mammalia, which is also on land. Aves can also be categorized as, if you like, land, if you like, arboreal. But I'm going to be using land. Okay, so that's about the habitat. We have our next characteristics to be number of heart chamber. Please don't forget number of heart chamber. We all know what we refer to as heart in the human body. Heart is the organ in the body that helps in pumping of blood throughout the body. Okay, so this heart can be subdivided into different chamber. Or let me say, this heart has different chamber, or let me say different room. So if this is the heart, this is not the correct diagram of the heart. I'm just using it to explain. We have it is subdivided into 2. We have the upper part. It is being referred to as atrium. Some people may call it auricle, but auricle is just a part of the atrium. Okay, we have the next one which is called the ventricle. So when you are talking about the ventricle, that's the lower part of the lower part of the heart. So atrium on the upper part and ventricle on the lower part. So we have some organisms that have only this chamber, one atrium and one ventricle. So I'm making how many? 1, 2. So they have just 2 chamber that, and that's the that's the Pisces. You know, the Pisces, they have 2 chamber that. What about the next one? Amphibian. Their atrium are being subdivided into 2 like this. You have like this. Don't forget that your right, when you are drawing a diagram in biology or anatomy, your right is your left is your right. So this will be the right atrium, while this one will be your left atrium. So this one you can see that they have how many chamber that? 3 chamber that. 1, 2, 3. So this amphibian, they have 3 chamber that. What about the next one? The reptilia, the reptiles. Okay, the reptiles, they have their atrium being divided completely. Then what about the ventricle? Incomplete division. So how do you count this? That's a problem. It's somehow problematic. You can see we have 1, 2. How do you now count? Do you say 3, 4, or you just say 3? So that's why they give it 3 and half. Or you can call it partially divided 4-chambered heart. Or you can say incomplete 4-chambered heart. So, but what we are going to be using is 3 and half. So don't forget, we have the next one, which is the Aves. Starting from the Aves, they have 4 like this. Their atrium is well divided, is completely divided into right and left, and their ventricle is completely divided into right and left. So this will build the right ventricle, while this one will be the left ventricle. So they have how many chamber that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 4 chamber that. 2 atrium, 2 ventricle. So you have 4 for bed, and the same thing with with mama, they also have 4. So don't forget, it is very easy. You can see 2, 3, 3 and half, 4, 4. Please don't forget once again, 2, 3, 3 and half, 4, 4. That's based on the based on the number of chambered, the number of heart chamber. Okay. Okay, so the next characteristics we are going to consider is the body temperature. Based on body temperature, organisms have been subdivided into 2. We have the first one, which is being referred to as the poikilothermic or cold-blooded animal. And we have the next one, which is being referred to as homoeothermic, which is the warm-blooded animal. Let us take a look. We have poikilothermic and we have the homoeothermic. So that's based on body temperature. Okay, so organism. So I can classify all organism into poikilothermic, or if you like, I can call them cold-blooded. Okay, they are cold-blooded animal. And we have the next one to be homoeothermic. So you can see this one will now be warm-blooded animal. So those are the two major subdivisions of organisms based on regulation of their body temperature. We have some organisms that can regulate their body temperature by themselves. That is, their body temperature doesn't depend on that of the environment. If the environment is cold, it doesn't really affect their body temperature. They have some kind of mechanism inside their body that they can use to regulate their body temperature. Okay, while the other one, the poikilothermic, they cannot regulate their body temperature by themselves. So they have to use some form of external means. Now, coming back again, don't forget, homeothermic. These are animals that can regulate their body temperature, or that have constant body temperature, irrespective of the temperature of the environment. Whether the environment is cold or it is warm, it doesn't really affect their own body temperature. They have some mechanism in their body used to regulate their temperature. And we have another form of animal called poikilothermic animal. These animals are those animals whose body temperature varies with that of the environment. That is when the environment is cold, their body temperature is also cold. When the environment is hot, their own is also hot. So their own body temperature varies with that of the environment. That's for poikilothermic or cold-blooded animal. Okay, so that's about classification of organism based on what? Based on body. Classification of vertebrate based on body temperature. So let us take a look. What Pisces, what's its own body temperature? We have this one is poikilothermic. Poikilothermic. This one, amphibian, is also poikilothermic. We have the next one, which is what? Which is also poikilothermic. Now, so okay, we have poikilothermic. We have the next one. The last two, they are homoeothermic. That is, they have a constant body temperature, irrespective of the temperature of the environment. So we have the homoeothermic, and this one is also homoeothermic. So one of the things we used to memorize is that okay, so as you can see our body temperature, the first three are poikilothermic, while the last two are homoeothermic. So you can simply memorize it as poi poi poi, oi oi. Don't forget poi poi poi, oi oi. Those are the characteristics based on what? Based on their body temperature. Poi poi poi, oi oi. Moving on, we have the mode of what? The mode of fertilization. When we are talking about the mode of fertilization, it can be external fertilization, whereby the egg and the sperm, they fuse outside the female body, and it can also be internal fertilization, whereby the sperm and the egg, they fuse inside the female body. So which one has external fertilization? Which one has internal fertilization? So we have we have this one to be external. So external fertilization. This one is also external fertilization, but from the reptiles. From reptiles down like that, they have internal fertilization. So you have internal, and finally you also have internal. That is, the egg and the sperm are diffused inside the female body. Okay, so that's about fertilization. So don't forget, you can easily memorize it using XX intintins. Don't forget XX intintins. So we have the first one, poi poi poi, oi oi. You have the next one to be what? XX intintins. Okay, moving on to the next one, we have our mode of reproduction. From using the mode of reproduction, we can have oviparous animal, you can have ovoviviparous animal, and you can also have viviparous animal. So, okay, let's see. When you are talking about the mode of reproduction, we have the reproduction. You can use the the first one. We have the oviparous animal. Okay, don't forget oviparous animal. Okay, you have the next one, Ovoviviparous animal, and you have the last one to be Viviparous animal. So don't forget about those three. So the first one, Oviparous, those are the type of reproduction whereby a female lay eggs, and the offspring will develop outside the female body. That is, the female animal has already laid the egg, then the offspring now started developing inside that egg that has been laid down. So please don't forget about that one. It's very common in our domesticated fowl that we usually use at our various houses. You can see that initially when the egg is being laid, there is no offspring inside it, but after some time the offspring started developing. That is, the offspring developed outside the female outside the female body. That's oviparous. They lay egg and the offspring develop outside the female body. What about the next one? Ovoviviparous. So they also their offspring is also inside an egg case. So, but that egg is inside their body. It is inside their body that the offspring is developing. You know, they haven't laid the egg out. The offspring has already started developing inside the female body. So when they want to give back to that offspring, they now hatch the egg will now hatch. Then the offspring comes out alive. So that's Ovoviviparous. Don't forget, Ovoviparous is also laying what? Is also using egg. That is, the offspring is also being nourished by the egg yolk. But the thing is that the offspring develop inside the female body, not outside the female body. Okay, we have the next one, which is Viviparous. We have their offspring are being nourished by the water, usually by the placenta. So that is, they give birth to young ones, or they give birth to young ones alive. That's for Viviparous. Take note of the differences between between those three. Oviparous lay egg, and the offspring they develop externally. Okay, we have the Oviparous. They also keep their offspring inside an egg. That is, the offspring is being nourished by the egg yolk, but the egg is still inside the female body. Okay, we have the Viviparous that doesn't lay any form of egg at all. They give birth to young ones alive. So now, among these five, which is Oviparous, which is Viviparous. So the first one, which is Pisces. We have the Oviparous. We have Amphibian is also Oviparous. Okay, we have the Reptilia, which is also Oviparous. We have the next one, which is Aves, is also Oviparous. And we have the last one. It's only the mama that is Viviparous. Viviparous. Please don't forget, all these things we are talking about, they have some exception, and we are going to discuss about this exception later in this video. Okay? So please don't forget that one. That's based on mode of reproduction. You might be asking, which one was not an example of organism with Oviparous? We have some species of Pisces, like some species of fish, they are using that one. We have some snakes that are also using Ovoviviparous. That is, they are using egg. They are laying egg, but the offspring would have developed inside the female body before the egg will now hatches. The offspring will come out then. Now, moving on, after the mode of reproduction, we have the types of dentition. Using dentition, we all know when we are talking about dentition, that's the arrangement of teeth in the mouth. Okay, so using dentition, we have two major types of dentition. You have the first one called homodont. We have the homodont dentition, and we have the heterodont dentition. Homodont simply means there is you have similar set of teeth. That's homodont. And we have heterodont, whereby an organism has different type of teeth. Like for example, the human being or the man, we have the incisor, the canine, the premolar, and the molar. There are different sets of teeth, and that's heterodont. So yeah, based on this, let us classify. The first one, which is Pisces, is homodont. Okay, we have the next one to be this is also homodont. We have homodont. We have homodont. We have this one, the Aves. They don't have no teeth. They don't have teeth. Instead of using teeth to grind their food, they use an organ called gizzard. So that's for best. So no teeth and no dentition at all. So no dentition for Aves or bear. Anyone you like? Okay, we have the final one, which is called the Mammalia. So the Mammalia are the only one with heterodont dentition. Heterodont. They have heterodont dentist. Please don't forget, they are the one that usually have some kind of exception. They are the only heterodonts, and they are the only Viviparous. Okay, moving on, we have the last aspect, which is organ of respiration. When you are talking about the organ of respiration, that is the organ that helps us to take in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. So let's start from the first one, which is life in water. When something is living inside the water, we all know that their mode of respiration is usually the gill. What about the amphibian? You can see this one, they can live on land and they can live in water. So they have various type of respiratory organ. So in their larvae stage, that is when they are still small, they usually use something called tadpole. Their larvae is the tadpole. They usually use a respiratory organ like gill. So okay, we have gill as a then. So but they have different things that they can use in adults. In their adult state, they can use their skin, they can use their buccal cavity, and they can use their lung. So they can use gill, they can use their skin, they can use their mouth, and finally they can use their water, their lungs. So they can use all these 4 things for respiration. The gill is being used when they are still young, that is the tadpole, while the other one skin. The type of respiration when they are using the skin is called cutaneous respiration. When they are using the mouth, we call it buccal respiration. And finally, when they are using the lung, you call it pulmonary respiration. So that's for the amphibian. The next one is the reptilia. What they use, they live on land. So that means they are going to be using lung. We have the next one, we have the Aves. They are also using what to lung. And we have the last one, which is Mamma. They are also using what to lung. So lung is an adaptation to life on land. When you see an organism living on land, the respiratory organ is likely to be able to lung. Please don't forget about that one. So that's that as for organ of respiration. Okay. Okay. So here are the summary of the 7 major characteristics of all the classes under Subphylum Vertebrata. Please don't forget our acronyms for all those classes under the vertebrate. The param, P is for Pisces, A is for Amphibia, R is for Reptilia, A is for Aves, and M is for Mammalia. Now, starting from the first characteristics, which is habitat, the Pisces is water. Then from water to Amphibia, which can live on land and in water. We have the reptiles on land, Aves, land, those sometimes you can consider a body. We have the Mammalia, which is on land majorly. Okay, there are some exceptions there. What are these exceptions? These are these are the what the examiner some of the time usually used to trick many students. So take note. For the first one, we have some mama that doesn't live on land. They live inside water. Those mamas are what? A typical example is whale. Whale is a mama that lives in water. We have another one, which is a mama that also that is a flying mama. That's that's a bat that live in water, that can live in air. You can call it arborea sometimes. So, okay, the next one is number of heart chamber. Don't forget, we said 2, 3, 3.5, 4, 4. So that is Pisces 2, Amphibia 3, Reptilia 3.5, Aves 4, Mammalia 4. So, but we have some exception. The first exception is under is under the amphibian. Amphibian and the larvae of some amphibian is called tadpole, and that tadpole, instead of having 3 chamber that, it has 2 chamber that. That's another exception. Next, we have under the reptilia. Where all the reptiles should have, they should have under a normal condition 3.5 chambered heart, but we have one that has 4 chambered heart, and that's crocodile. Don't forget, although crocodile is a reptile, it has 4 chambered hearts. Now, after the chambered heart, we have the next one, which is under the mode of fertilization. Under the mode of fertilization, Pisces. That is all those fish, they should have been they should have undergone external fertilization. But we have some fish that undergo internal fertilization, and that is the cartilaginous fish, which are the chondrotids. Don't forget the shark, the ray skates, they undergo internal fertilization instead of the normal external fertilization that is being undergone by fish. Okay, now moving away from that one, you have your you have your mode of reproduction. You have some species, we have some fish that undergo Ovoviviparous, and we have some reptiles like some snake that undergo Ovoviparous. So that's about that. And under the organ of respiration, Pisces, normally the fish, they should have been using gill, but we have a fish that can use lung as its mode as an organ of respiration, and that fish is called lungfish. Thank you very much, everyone.